There's a silence that settles in the house after a certain age. It's not always sadness. Sometimes it's just the stillness of a body that used to move faster, of muscles that once responded to thought like music to rhythm. But one day, you notice it's harder to stand from the chair. Your arms feel empty when you carry the groceries. And deep inside, there's a question you didn't expect to ask. Am I disappearing from my own strength? You are not alone in that question. And the answer perhaps is not in a gym or a pill bottle, or the chalky taste of yet another protein powder that promises to restore youth. No, the truth is quieter and older. It comes from the rhythm of the body, not formulas, not numbers, rhythm. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, who lived past 100 and cared for patients until his last breath, once said, "Health is sustained by rhythm, not by formulas." He wasn't talking about exercise routines or meal plans. He was talking about the music of life, waking with the sun, eating with intention, moving with joy, resting with peace. And that rhythm, it fades, not because we are old, but because the world stops speaking the body's language. Many people over 60 are led to believe that muscle loss is just part of aging, that weakness is inevitable, that the only way to regain strength is through expensive powders or grueling workouts. But this isn't the whole truth. Because strength, real strength, starts deep inside, long before the weights, long before the blender. It begins in the gut, in the mitochondria, in the way your cells listen to food like an old friend who remembers who you were. Dr. Mark Hyman calls this intelligent nutrition, the idea that food isn't just calories, it's information. Every bite tells your body what to do, to heal or to decline, to build or to break. Most powders don't say much. But there is a food, simple, overlooked, older than most of us, that speaks to the body in a language it still remembers. A food that has traveled through generations, sat on quiet kitchen tables, and kept grandparents strong enough to bend, to lift, to walk with pride even in their 80s. It's not exotic, it's not expensive, but it might just be the food your muscles have been waiting to hear from. So many people today are tired, not from laziness, but from carrying invisible burdens. From feeling like their body betrayed them, from waking up to stiffness and falling asleep with doubt. But what if your body isn't broken? What if it's just waiting for the right signal, for the right rhythm, for the right nourishment to remember its strength? Muscles, after all, are like students. They don't get lazy, they just stop hearing the right lesson. And today, we begin again. Not with powders, not with promises, but with something far more powerful. The quiet, ancient rhythm of real food, real habits, and real strength. Let's begin. He thought he was doing the right thing. Every morning, without fail, he stirred a scoop of protein powder into a glass of water. It tasted like cardboard, but he didn't complain. He'd read somewhere that after 65, muscle disappears fast, that the only way to stay strong was to drink those powders and keep moving. But the strength never returned. Not really. The stairs still felt steeper. The arms still trembled when lifting the groceries, and inside a quiet frustration grew. Why isn't this working anymore? That quiet question has been asked by thousands, because what most people aren't told is that after 60, the body doesn't absorb things the way it used to. Stomach acid declines, digestive enzymes slow down, even the organs responsible for breaking down and using protein grow tired. And when we drink isolated powders, stripped of their natural companions like fiber, minerals, and enzymes, the body often doesn't know what to do with them. It tries, yes, but instead of turning that powder into strength, it often turns it into waste, into bloat, into fatigue, into meals that leave you feeling heavy and unsatisfied. At the Harvard Geriatric Nutrition Center, researchers found that many older adults who consumed synthetic protein isolates saw a rise in nitrogen waste. That waste doesn't build muscle. It burdens the kidneys, it makes digestion harder, and it can quietly take away the appetite, one of the few joys that remain untouched by age. But perhaps the most misunderstood part is this. Muscle isn't built by more protein. It's built by balance, a delicate rhythm of protein, movement, rest, and hormones that whisper to the cells, now, repair. When we flood the body with powders, when we ignore the natural needs of our digestion, we may be feeding the tank, but we're forgetting the engine. There is a better way, one that respects the complexity of aging, one that doesn't overwhelm the body, but supports it gently. Whole food proteins like lentils, eggs, or fermented soy bring not just amino acids, but also the tools the body needs to use them. They come with cofactors, with fiber, with memory, and memory matters. Because food, like us, carries history, and the body listens best to what it remembers. Powders may seem modern, efficient, convenient, but they are strangers to the digestive system of a 70-year-old body. Lentils, on the other hand, are familiar. They've sat in the hands of grandmothers, simmered in clay pots, fed families through war and peace, drought and harvest. They don't come in flashy packaging, but they come with something more valuable, the ability to be truly absorbed, to be truly used. As one elderly man once said, holding a warm bowl of stew, "This doesn't just feed me, it reminds me who I am." And perhaps that's the difference. Protein powders might fill the tank, but only real food turns the engine. They sat quietly on the shelf, the same way they've sat for centuries. Brown, red, green. Lentils don't shout for attention. They don't come with promises of youth or strength. They don't sparkle. But in the homes of those who lived long and lived well, they were always there, simmering softly with garlic and onion, filling the air with a scent that felt like safety. Lentils are not fashionable, and perhaps that's what makes them powerful. In a world that's always looking for something new, they offer something ancient, nourishment that the body recognizes even after 70, even after loss, even after long winters of fatigue. Inside each lentil is a quiet strength. Leucine, lysine, resistant starch, words that may sound distant, but they are simply building blocks. Blocks your body once used with ease to repair skin, rebuild muscles, restore energy. As we age, these blocks become harder to find, and many modern foods, especially processed ones, carry little of them. But lentils still do, not in high doses that overwhelm, but in balanced harmony, accompanied by fiber that feeds the gut and slows the rise of sugar in the blood. Scientists at Oxford and Tufts studied older adults who ate legumes 4 times a week. The result wasn't just theory, it was flesh, it was movement. Those who ate these humble foods had up to 30% more lean mass than those who didn't. Not because they exercised more, not because they took supplements, but because their food whispered to their muscles, "Stay, you're still needed." There's something almost poetic about the way lentils work. Their protein and fiber don't flood the system, they ease in, they stabilize insulin, the hormone that quietly tells the body to repair, to build, to hold on to strength instead of letting it slip away. And in a time of life when so much seems to slip, names, memories, energy, this quiet stability is a gift. They are also easy on the body. Cooked slowly with turmeric or cumin, they digest more gently. Paired with lemon or tomato, their iron becomes more accessible. And even half a cup, spread gently across meals, can begin to change the rhythm inside. Not with noise, but with constancy. Because lentils aren't just food, they're memory, a return to something slower, simpler, wiser. They are the seeds that kept farmers working the land into their 80s, that fed children and elders from the same pot, that healed without asking for praise. And maybe, just maybe, your muscles haven't given up. Maybe they've just forgotten the sound of something real. Something that doesn't come from a plastic tub, something that comes from the earth. Lentils are humble seeds with ancient memory. They remind your muscles what strength feels like. There is a quiet clock inside the body that most people rarely notice. It does not chime with musical bells, but it keeps time with the sun, with waking, and with the small patterns of daily life. For decades, meals were arranged around work and family rhythms, bread at dawn, soup at noon, a warm dinner by lamplight. Somewhere along the way, modern schedules and convenience shifted most of the day's nourishment toward the evening, when tired bodies finally sit down to rest. That shift, small as it seems, changes the conversation between food and muscle. With age, the body's sensitivity to insulin, the gentle messenger that helps muscles take in nutrients, changes its schedule. In the morning and early afternoon, muscles are more willing listeners. They receive signals of repair more readily. Later at night, the same signal arrives but is heard less clearly. Researchers at Stanford found that when protein and nourishing meals were spread evenly across the day, older adults showed a much stronger muscle-building response than those who concentrated protein late at night. The effect was striking. Distribution mattered more than sheer quantity. This is not a call to rigid rules. It is a reminder that timing is part of the language we use to speak to our cells. A light breakfast that carries real protein, lentils, eggs, or a small portion of beans with greens, creates a morning cue. It asks the body in a soft way to remember repair. It primes energy for the mid-morning walk or the slow tasks that once felt easy. Small acts of rhythm, repeated with kindness, are the ones that unfold strength over months, not weeks. There is an everyday counterintuitive truth here. A modest meal early in the day can be more valuable than a heavy dinner piled with protein. The body's repair machinery leans toward daylight hours. Even a gentle portion in the first 90 minutes after waking nudges metabolism into a constructive pattern, reducing afternoon fatigue and smoothing the rise and fall of blood sugar that often steals energy and focus. When meals are scattered and heavy only by evening, the chance for steady, repeated repair is lost. The habit that emerges from this understanding is one of gentle consistency rather than strict deprivation. Imagine the day as a small series of invitations to the body, a bowl at breakfast that speaks of nourishment, a composed lunch that continues the conversation, and an evening meal that gently closes the day. Spread across these invitations is an opportunity for muscles to listen, respond, and slowly regain their old fluency. Perhaps the most comforting part of this idea is that it honors smallness. Half a cup of lentils with a few greens in the morning is hardly a ceremony. It is simply a message. Repeated over weeks, it becomes a memoir of healing written in mild, steady acts. Your muscles remember rhythms. They remember the cadence of regular meals, the soft persistence of protein given in kindness, and the trust that comes from a body met with consistent care. Your muscles have office hours. They do their best work when the day is awake. When food and light and movement keep a gentle accord, the body finds a new tempo. And in that tempo, strength becomes less distant and more possible. There is a quiet place inside the body that decides more than we imagine. It doesn't speak loudly. It doesn't ache when it's overwhelmed, but it controls whether the food we eat becomes energy or simply passes through. It determines whether the protein on our plate reaches our muscles or gets lost in translation. This place is the gut, and after 60, its voice becomes faint until we learn how to listen again. The muscles may be what we see, what we measure, what we mourn when they begin to fade. But the gut is what decides whether those muscles are fed or forgotten. With age, the stomach produces less acid, the pancreas releases fewer enzymes, the small intestine becomes more selective, more sensitive, sometimes more inflamed. These are not flaws. They are the quiet consequences of time, of medication, of stress, of grief held too long. And yet, despite all this, the gut still tries, still receives, still hopes to nourish. Dr. Mark Hyman speaks often about restoring communication in the body, not by adding more, but by clearing the noise, by helping the systems speak again. Food, to the gut, is not only substance, it is signal. And when that signal is too processed, too artificial, too unfamiliar, it confuses the message. The result is often invisible. The nutrients are present, but the absorption is poor. It is not the quantity of protein that matters. It is what the gut can recognize, break down, and pass along with care. Here, fermented foods carry an ancient power, not as trends or health fads, but as companions to digestion. Tempeh, kefir, sauerkraut, miso. These are foods that begin the work before the body even tries. They soften the burden. They pre-digest proteins and soothe inflammation. They remind the digestive system of how to begin again. There are small rituals that help, passed down in kitchens older than any supplement shelf. A tablespoon of sauerkraut before a meal, a sip of warm lemon water in the morning. These are not dramatic acts, but neither is healing. Healing at this stage of life is often quiet and repetitive and tender. It does not arrive in grand gestures. It unfolds in the return of appetite, the softening of the belly after eating, the unexpected energy on a walk that used to end in fatigue. A weak gut is like a locked warehouse. You may be feeding it treasure, but unless the door is open, the body cannot use it. And many have been storing treasures for years, good intentions, nourishing meals, careful diets, without realizing the key was missing. The key is not more. It is readiness, it is softness. It is the return of trust between food and the body. When the gut begins to feel safe again, when its lining is soothed and its bacteria are cared for, everything downstream begins to change. Muscles start to receive, energy returns in small waves, memory sharpens, even mood lifts gently, because the gut is not just a digestive machine, it is an emotional organ. It remembers stress, it carries trauma, but it also remembers peace, and it heals slowly, with care. Not all decline is inevitable. Sometimes it's just a matter of unlocking the door to what has always been waiting inside. You might eat well, rest enough, and even add more protein to your plate, but still feel your strength fading. The arms that once lifted grandchildren now tremble. The legs that used to walk for hours now hesitate at the stairs. It's easy to think, I'm just getting old. But often, what's missing isn't effort. It's the quiet support behind the scenes, micronutrients your body depends on to do its work. Magnesium helps turn protein into muscle. Zinc repairs tissues. Vitamin D supports balance and strength. Without these, even the best meals can fall short. Not because the food is wrong, but because the body can't unlock what it needs. And with age, the storage of these nutrients runs low. The skin absorbs less sunlight. The gut takes in less from the same meals. Even mild deficiencies can turn nourishment into frustration when food is present, but healing is stalled. The answer isn't in more pills or complex routines. It's in gentle, regular presence. A handful of pumpkin seeds stirred into warm lentils, a bowl of spinach with olive oil and lemon, 10 quiet minutes outside in morning light. These are not dramatic changes, but they begin to give the body what it's been missing. Researchers have seen that older adults with good magnesium levels build more lean tissue, even with simple movement. Because once the builders are present, the body begins to remember. It doesn't need to be forced, it just needs to be supported. Protein is important, but without these silent partners, it remains unused. Strength doesn't come from one nutrient, it comes from cooperation. Tiny pieces working together gently, quietly, restoring what was never truly lost. Dr. Hinohara once said, "Nature provides everything, but only to those who pay attention." After 60, strength isn't lost, it's forgotten, buried beneath noise and rushed solutions. The body still listens, but only to what it recognizes: rhythm, warmth, real food. Lentils, sunlight, fermented meals, these speak gently to tired cells. Dr. Hyman calls it metabolic literacy, this quiet understanding between nourishment and repair. Your muscles aren't gone, they're waiting for the right signal. Not powders, not promises, but presence. Every bite can say, rebuild or release. And in that choice, strength returns. Powders feed numbers, real food feeds life.